And we now return to our top story of India-UK ties. Two special guests are joining me to take the conversation forward. Let me welcome Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat and Director General of Motwani Jadeja Institute for American Studies at the Jindal Global University, and Dr. Gautam Sen, leading economist from London School of Economics. Good evening and welcome, gentlemen. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, if I can come to you first. It's turning out to be a particularly important year for India-UK ties. First, the historic trade agreement, and now Prime Minister Starmer's first visit to India. What were your key takeaways from the multiple high-level engagements that we witnessed throughout the day?
Thank you very much for having me. I thought there was geopolitical congruence and strategic convergence, first of all. UK is, I think, after Brexit, trying to take advantage of the enormous flexibility now it has got in terms of fostering relationships that it could otherwise have had to rely on Brussels and so on. So I think there is a great willingness on the part of UK to try and have as many partnerships as possible. And from India's point of view, it's also a question of hedging. We are trying to get as many partnerships as possible other than with the United States, China, etc. So I see a lot of strategic congruence, if you like. But in terms of the important takeaways, I would say trade investment is one basket. The second for me is technology and the technology security initiative. The third is education, which I think is important, people-to-people ties. And then two other sub-issues, if you like. One is really the climate issue, on which there was talk of climate finance and resilience and so on. And finally, defense and security. And what caught my attention was India-UK cooperation in the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
And that is important as well. So those are the main takeaways, and I'm happy to expand on it later when you ask me the questions.
Right, so we'll just come to that. Dr. Gautam Sen, how do you see the momentum that was generated with the historic India-UK Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, CETA? How's that momentum taken forward with this engagement of the leaders?
This is a very significant step for the two countries. For India, this has been catalyzed somewhat by the trade issues with the United States, because some of our sectors are very severely affected, particularly textiles, because we only have a 6% share of the UK market. So there is much scope for growth, and my understanding is that they hope to double it in the next 2 years. So it will offer some speedy, needed relief to India's textile sector, because we will now be as competitive as those countries which have tariff privileges as least developed, like Bangladesh. That's one. So there is a congruence. For the United Kingdom, the cost of leaving the European Union and Brexit has been catastrophic, £100 billion. And the trade share of the EU for the UK was 42%. You cannot walk away from that without some cost. And India is their most significant deal, and they have been trying for a very long time. My understanding was that India was hesitant for a very long time, and in fact, I've spoken to senior advisors to the government who had strong reservations, including a former ambassador to the WTO, who worried quite rightly about the impact it might have on nascent Indian technology firms which require a degree of protection. Bear in mind, the United Kingdom is, despite its multiple economic troubles, a major player in the technology field. It is the third largest in AI, with a market worth $97 billion. They have 3,700 AI firms, and they are number 3 after the United States and China. They also have the maximum number of startups among most countries, and of course they have much in education. I would sound a note of caution. There are some political issues, because the United Kingdom has turned out to be the most vehement enemy of the Russian Federation, determined to pursue the war to the bitter end, and Russia remains an important ally, and this may be an issue. One should also bear in mind there is a very strong Pakistani lobby, and there are circumstances in which tens of thousands of demonstrators may protest trade with India, particularly in the defense sector. Yet, we have much to gain if we play that game with some care and forethought, and we are in a very strong position to insist on those things which suit us. In the economic terms, the long-run beneficiary will be the UK because the smaller economy experiences the larger adjustment, and we are bigger than them in absolute terms, though much less in per capita. So the UK will benefit, and a huge relief for them, considering the troubles they're having with their fiscal, etc. So I think, yes, this is a good thing. We need to play it very carefully, particularly the defense sector. There are things we can gain, and we have to be a bit hard-headed. I'm not worried about the impact on things like whiskey and vehicles, because our vehicle sector is very strong. The lower end and medium sector, I think we will outcompete them. And if we buy more Jaguars, the dividends are coming to India anyway. As for whiskey, I think Indian whiskey is getting better and better. And we have the climate conditions to make some of the best whiskey. And I don't think many people will be willing to spend money on high-end Scottish whiskey.
We'll talk about these specific areas, Dr. Sen. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, in the context of the complications that Dr. Gautam Sen underlined, and also the great global uncertainties that we are witnessing, how do you see, what kind of convergence in priorities do you see between India and the UK, particularly as far as the regional and multilateral cooperation by the two countries are concerned?
Well, I just happened to glance at the regional and the multilateral chapter of the joint statement.
Yes.
And I thought there was quite a bit of convergence in terms of both UK and India want a little bit of predictability and stability in the international order, given the volatility that has been unleashed by some powers. And so the international order is not exactly stable. And UK and India believe that by having a strong strategic partnership, they can bring a certain element of stability and predictability to the international order. UK has always supported India's candidature for the UN Security Council. But what interested me most was, I think, UK and India agreeing that they have a role in the Indo-Pacific where they can fulfill some of the shared responsibility. And this is important for India because the Indo-Pacific tends to be heavily concentrated on the Pacific when it comes to the United States and other powers. Our problem has been really that we have to take care of the Indian Ocean. And I think there UK and France could be of great help. And I think the fact that the United Kingdom has come forward to assist us in that area is, I believe, significant. But I do believe that there is quite a bit of convergence on what is happening in Gaza. Both UK and India appear to have strongly welcomed the United States peace plan, which appears to have taken off. And in terms of Ukraine, I find it important that both countries agree that there is need for durable peace based on the UN Charter and on international law. So I thought that was significant as well. So there is quite a bit of convergence on the whole between the two countries. I don't see a very serious discordant note between the two countries in this area.
Okay, and what you said about the Indo-Pacific, do you also see the expansion of the bilateral security exchanges between India and the UK, from the issue of counter-terror to joint production of advanced weapons? We see a greater convergence in the countries working together in this domain of security.
Is that to
Absolutely.
me?
This one is for Ambassador Kumar. I'll just come to you, Dr. Sen.
So absolutely, just to second whatever you are saying, I think in the area of defense and security, United Kingdom and India have a long partnership, and that can only be strengthened. I think joint exercises are on the cards. There is a lot of information and possibilities of cooperation in the area of maritime security. And again, in the context of Indian Ocean, that becomes significant.
Right. Dr. Gautam Sen, what you mentioned about the areas that are going to benefit, we also know a large business delegation accompanied Prime Minister Keir Starmer to Mumbai. Also, Prime Minister mentioned the manner in which the historic trade agreement between the two countries is going to benefit significantly the smaller businesses, the MSMEs. How do you see the benefits of the agreement percolating down to the smaller businesses and entrepreneurs?
I think for the MSMEs, it depends on whether or not they're in the traded goods sector. And British MSMEs are mainly in the service sector, so there's not much in it for them. But I think in technology areas, if India negotiates in a hard-headed way, there is much to gain. And most important of all is the politics. The geopolitics has changed. The United Kingdom has a much weaker hand, and India is now negotiating with a hard-headed attitude. So yes, we can gain, but Britain is not a major player in terms of armed forces. They have only 80,000 troops altogether. Their navy is relatively small, but nevertheless, there is scope for cooperation. But a country like Japan is much more important, and our key ally for the long term will remain Russia. And we must bear in mind Russia and the United Kingdom and the United States are the most bitter opponents of Russia, and they are pushing for regime change. So we have to be cautious because of the wider implications of our association with the UK. Okay. But we have a strong hand and we can dictate.
And Dr. Sen, also when Prime Minister asks the business leaders if they can identify areas where India-UK partnership can in fact lead the world, set global standards, what would be those areas where the two countries in particular could work and excel in a better way?
I think from an Indian perspective, if I may be a bit partisan, we should be very well organized in terms of gaining STEM education from British universities. Oxford, Imperial, and many others have much to offer, and there is an advantage for them because R&D is very costly, and if you have a larger market on which to defray your findings and research, India's market size will reduce average cost for both parties. So here we really need to change India's regulatory structure, and I believe 9 universities are coming. I am not so happy if it's social science, because the social science in the UK is systematically hostile to India and Hindus. But I think in STEM we have much to gain, in defense and security as well. We need to import technology, but on a basis of total transfer technology so that we do not lose autonomy. And I believe the Prime Minister in Delhi is very keen on Atmanirbhar. So that will happen. I am quite optimistic about where it will lead, but I think we should be guarded because UK has not been our friend all the time. And our Foreign Minister almost suffered a personal injury in London recently, which I witnessed to my horror. So we need to be wary. There are many forces in the UK which are deeply hostile to India, including the Khalistanis who have had free reign, and of course, the tens of thousands who are demonstrating for Islam. We need to be aware of this, and I've been here for a very, very long time, and I've been observing this for over half a century.
Okay, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, your final comments on the aspect of people-to-people connect with reference to what was said about the education sector. 9 UK universities are set to open campuses in India. The manner in which you see this particular domain of knowledge economy of universities opening up in India and other areas where the people from the two sides could engage, work, live better.
I think the joint statement describes the Indian expatriate community in the UK as a living bridge. And I think that's absolutely correct. But in terms of universities, the current climate being what it is, and our students are finding it difficult to get visas to go to the United States, UK could be an alternative, at least in the short to medium term. So there's a lot of renewed interest on the part of Indian students, both STEM, non-STEM, to go to the UK. And I think the idea of UK universities opening campuses in either Gujarat or Bangalore or Delhi, I think that's just implementation of the national education policy. So the fact of the matter is the supply of quality universities in India does not meet the demand of students, and it is increasingly difficult for Indian students to go abroad for expensive education. So anything that we can do to bridge the gap between supply and demand for higher education in India is welcome. And I think traditionally there has been a lot of interest among the Indian students to go to the UK. The big four are US, UK, Australia, Canada. But I think the UK is getting back its mojo in terms of attracting the best students. I would also underline one other thing, and which is really that in the area of AI, telecom, cybersecurity, and quantum, I think there can be a lot of things that can happen between the two countries. I think there has been an idea that we need to set up a center for promoting AI innovation, and I would not underestimate the potential that both countries have in this respect.
On that note, Ambassador Mohan Kumar and Dr. Gautam Sen, thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour and sharing your perspective.